Hi everyone, welcome back to Messages from the Mist, where I look at divination reading through a particular lens or theme. My hope is that this gives us a way to feel connected to the spirits and to each other, and an opportunity to take their wisdom and blessings into ourselves. So I'd invite you to join me in this experience of connection, and I hope that you'll find a new way to connect to the spirits and the divine, and perhaps be inspired to understand life in a new or different way, letting your actions reflect that understanding. Today I'll be looking at a divination reading through the lens of fear. So, fear. I think now more than ever this is something that most people can relate to. There's a lot of fear and uncertainty right now, with many folks not knowing if their job will still be there when this is all over, not knowing how they'll make ends meet, or even simply not knowing how to handle a change in lifestyle, even if they're not overly worried about essential needs. Fear that they know someone will get the disease, fear about what happens if they do, and there's no judgments, there's no reasons that you need to have to be scared about these things. Fear doesn't discriminate, and it can make us do, think, and feel all kinds of wild things. I think it's important to remember that our humanity and our compassion are a thing that we have in the midst of all this fear. It's hard. Fear taps into our lizard brain and activates our fight, flight, freeze response. That's why we're seeing all this hoarding and bulk buying at grocery stores, and why you might feel so tired all the time. But we can do our best to redirect our fear and to remember our humanity. I saw a meme the other day about how anthropologist Margaret Mead defined what archaeological evidence was the start of civilization. And it wasn't the tools for hunting, it wasn't religious artifacts, it wasn't primitive forms of government. It was a healed femur, a thigh bone. And in order to survive that severe of a broken leg, someone had to have taken care of that person long enough for the bone to heal. So we can learn from our ancestors to face fear. We can find our humanity within fear. And instead of resorting to panic, we can focus on that fear, harness it, and for the benefit of ourselves and our community. Hi, puppy. If the first indication of human civilization is caring for those who are broken and in need, let's take that lesson and apply it now in the face of fear and hardship. So let's look at the message that the spirits have for us regarding fear. The symbols I pulled this week were Psi, Rho, Gamma, and the Three of Swords. So let's look at these one by one for a moment. Can you lay down? That would be helpful for me. Thank you. So Psi. The translated phrase that goes along with this symbol is, you have this righteous judgment from the gods. This means that you've been given a directive and there are expectations that go along with that. Anyone with test anxiety can relate here. Having high expectations is a scary thing. It can make you want to freeze up, and it can make it really hard to focus. Your brain tries to run away from what you need to do. So how do you handle that? And I can't say what's going to be best for everyone, but the best thing for me has always been setting up a schedule and being organized about it. So if you don't have any idea, this could be a good starting point. So we've got these big expectations. And with the current troubles, let's just look at the shelter-in-place expectation. So I don't know about you, but that particular phrase, shelter-in-place, carries with it a lot of anxiety. But really, staying home, that's what it means. Shouldn't be a big deal. But when I consider how often I leave the house for any amount of small little things, it can get really stifling. So I set a schedule to help. I've got kids, so we wake up and have breakfast, and then we do our educational stuff until lunch, whether that's what the teacher sent home or just kind of what we're doing as far as education. They're young, so it could just be crafts for us. You might be working at home, so you might focus on the work that you have for your day job. Anyways, then we eat lunch and we go for a walk, and then we relax and watch a movie or play on tablets. Then dinner, then some family time, and then the kids go to bed, and then finally me and my partner get a chance to relax without the kids, which is great. So when I break down my day like that, it makes it seem more manageable and less scary. And so I think we need to look at the things that make our lives less scary and that we do have control over. And so Psi is telling us that this is the directive we have, but it's on us to make sure that we are making that manageable for us. So let's look at the next one, which is row. So the translated phrase here is, you will go more easily if you wait a short time. So when we're talking about fear and anxiety, to me, this really says, breathe, breathe. Sometimes we have to take that breath and we have to center ourselves before we can start doing things that are hard. We have to have patience. Nothing is going to happen quickly right now, and we just need to wait it out. And waiting is really hard. And for me, a lot of times that waiting causes even more anxiety just because we don't know what's going to happen next. And so we come back to this breathe, just breathe, so that we can make it through the fear and the anxiety. The next one is gamma. So when you translate this one, it's Gaia will give you the ripe fruit of your labors. And generally this means you'll reap what you sow. So if you're focusing all day on your anxieties and fears, then what you're going to get is more anxiety and more fear. But if you focus on other things like your work or the joy in the coming spring or your creative projects, then those are the things that are going to come back to you. So it's hard to remember, or at least hard to focus on, those good things in life. Fear is like this dark pit, and it can eat away at you from the inside. And if you feed it, it just gets darker and darker. So I'm trying hard to remember to plant the things that will be beneficial to me. And that's what will get me through the darkness and the fear, because I'm going to get out of this time whatever I put into it. And the last one I have here is the Three of Swords. So it's worth noting, first of all, especially if you're familiar with tarot, that the deck I'm using, which is the Legend of Tarot, purposefully switched the traditional elemental meanings for swords and wands. So in this deck, swords are associated with fire and wands are associated with air. It just matches better with the imagery that they're using, which is from the Legend of Zelda. It's a great deck. So anyways, the Three of Swords paints a picture of an old woman in a boat, and her way is lit by torchlight and magic. She navigates a river with many different plants to each side. So when we look at the Three of Swords through the lens of fear, start by looking at just this fire association. And we know that fire can be both healing and destructive, and that is a call to action. And I think that makes sense with where we are right now. We're taking this decisive action that will, in the long run, promote healing and will also be destructive to many people's lives and livelihoods. And that's scary. Just because things are going to heal doesn't mean they're going to hurt. They're not going to hurt on the way there. And so they're going to be hard and destructive. And no matter the benefits, that's still scary. So let's narrow this down and look at just the Three of Swords. We can look to this idea that we're exploring options right now. And that exploration gives us strength. Right now, we're being forced to reevaluate all kinds of things, the way we do them, the things that are important to us. And a lot of folks are leaning into that fear right now, and they're coming out with more ways to cope. So we are learning new ways to be social through video chats. I just had a great one today with my little village, and we all just had dinner together like we normally do, but it was for video chat, and that's never something that we would have thought of before. Art and creativity is being shared on a massive scale. People are showing what they're doing or going live on Facebook and being like, hey, I was painting a picture today and thought you all would like it. So we're pulling through the fear to find our humanity, and we're connecting to each other through that fear. So what do we get when we look at all these symbols together? It's a time of fear and anxiety, and we've been given a task that can exacerbate that fear and anxiety. The only thing we can do to make it through is to remember to breathe and to do some self-care. We can explore new things that help us navigate the dark and scary time, and we can strive to make connections with other people. So I'd invite you now, as we did last week, to think on these messages. Think on the wisdom and these blessings from the spirits. How can they influence you in the way you approach life? How can you share them with your community? How can you share them with the world? And finally, where do you see fear in your life right now? And what is it teaching you? So thanks for joining me today, and I'll see you again soon. Just a quick reminder that I'm posting these on my Patreon, and all my patrons get access to them a few days early, and then they'll be available to everyone after that. If you like the work I'm doing, I'd encourage you to follow me over on Patreon so that you get notifications for new stuff. And if you're able, join me as a patron at any tier of support. You can find that at patreon.com/Skylark913. Thanks, everyone.